have you ever felt that incredible frustration? You know, you eat clean, you hit the gym, you're doing everything you're supposed to do, but a few months later, somehow, you're right back where you started. It's an exhausting story for a reason, and the numbers behind it are, well, they're pretty staggering.
Just take a look at this number for a second. 95%. What on earth could that possibly be?
Yep, that's the long-term failure rate for most diets. So if you've struggled with this, let me just say this right now, it is not your fault. You are not lazy and you don't lack willpower. The problem is the entire approach we've been taught.
See, the truth is, your body is literally, and I mean literally, hardwired to fight back against rapid weight loss. It's a survival mechanism that's been baked into our DNA for thousands of years.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because it's a full-on biological battle. The moment you start cutting calories, your body goes into panic mode. It thinks there's a famine. First, your metabolism slams on the brakes to conserve every single bit of energy. Then, your hunger hormone, this thing called ghrelin, absolutely skyrockets, screaming at your brain, "Eat, find food now." At the end of the day, your body's #1 job is to keep you alive, and it couldn't care less about your Beachbody goals.
Okay, so if our own biology is basically working against us, then how in the world do you explain a place like Japan? It's this amazing puzzle that seems to just break all the rules we think we know.
And this chart just says it all, doesn't it? Japan has an obesity rate of only 4.5%. Compare that to the US, which is around 42%. That is almost 10 times lower. And they're eating rice and noodles every single day. So what do they know that we don't?
All right, so what's the first thing people guess? Genetics, right? It has to be genetics. But nope. Turns out, studies show that when Japanese people move and adopt a typical Western lifestyle, their health stats start to look a lot more, well, Western. So we can just cross that one right off the list.
Okay, so if it's not genetics, maybe they're all just total gym rats. Spending hours on the treadmill? Not even close. In fact, get this, only about 3% of the entire Japanese population even has a gym membership. So that's not it either.
And that brings us to the real secret here. The answer isn't about more restriction, more willpower, or dieting harder. It's about living smarter. It's about creating a lifestyle where being healthy is the default, not this constant uphill battle.
So let's start with the first big idea, which is all about designing your environment. This is about making the healthy choice the easiest possible choice you can make.
You know, in psychology, they call this environmental design. And the core idea is simple. We love to think we're in control, making all these conscious choices. But really, most of the time, our environment is making the choice for us. Think about it like this. If you have a bowl of cookies sitting on your kitchen counter, you're probably going to eat them. If they're tucked away on the top shelf of the pantry, maybe not so much.
This is a perfect real-world example. Go into a convenience store in Japan, and the easy grab-and-go options are things like rice bowls with fish, miso soup, or tofu. You go into one in the US, and, well, you know what you'll find. Japan has simply designed its environment so that the convenient choice is also the healthy choice.
And this idea of making things easy extends to one of their most famous concepts, something called hara hachibu. It's an old saying that basically reminds people to eat until they're about 80% full, satisfied, not completely stuffed.
And here's how they pull it off without it feeling like a punishment. Meals are served on smaller plates and bowls. A typical meal isn't one giant plate, but several little dishes with a variety of things. Psychologically, it feels like a feast. And this very cleverly gets around something called the unit bias, that little voice in your head that tells you, hey, you got to clean your plate no matter how big the plate is.
Okay, so that's your environment. Now let's build on that and talk about the second key piece, your personal rituals. This is all about how small, consistent, daily routines can totally reshape your health without you even having to think about it.
So, for example, most people in Japan stick to 3 main meals at pretty consistent times. And it's not about being super rigid, it's about giving your body a rhythm. When your body knows when to expect food, your hunger hormones start to regulate, which means less random snacking and fewer of those late-night cravings.
Now let's talk about movement, because this next part is a huge game changer. It's all about something scientists call NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. I know it's a super fancy term, but the idea is actually really simple. It's just all the calories you burn living your life. Stuff that isn't formal exercise, like walking, cleaning, or even fidgeting at your desk. And this is where the magic happens. People in Japan don't really work out in the way we think about it. They just move. They walk to the train station. They take the stairs. They bike to the grocery store. Movement isn't this separate one-hour thing you have to force yourself to do at the gym. It's woven into the fabric of the entire day. And all those little movements add up to a massive calorie burn.
Here's another super powerful ritual, the simple act of eating slowly. Did you know it takes about 20 minutes for your stomach to send the signal to your brain that says, hey, I'm full? Using chopsticks is one way to naturally slow yourself down, but you can get the exact same effect by just putting your fork down between bites, taking a breath, and actually tasting your food. It gives your brain a chance to catch up.
And this all ties into one last, really beautiful idea: respecting the meal. In Japan, eating isn't something you do while you're walking down the street or scrolling on your phone or watching TV. It's treated like a dedicated moment, almost like its own little mini ceremony. When you're mindful like that, you start to actually hear your body's signals about what it really needs.
So when you put all these pieces together, the environment, the rituals, the mindset, you start to see that the real Japanese secret isn't a diet plan or an exercise routine at all. It's a completely different way of thinking.
Really, it all comes down to this one powerful idea. It's about working with your biology, not constantly fighting against it. It's about shifting from this mindset of conflict to one of harmony, where staying healthy and slim stops being a daily battle and just becomes a natural part of who you are.
So, to wrap it all up, what are the big takeaways here? First, set up your environment so the healthy choice is the lazy choice. Second, build tiny, mindful rituals around how you eat and how you move. And third, just focus on the big picture: balance, rhythm, and a little respect for your body.
Look, the point here isn't to wake up tomorrow and try to change your entire life. That's how we get back to that 95% failure rate. It's about small, gentle, sustainable shifts. So just looking at all these ideas, which one feels like the easiest, most achievable habit you could try first?